it started with a name. Late one evening, while Armin was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I didn't mean to look, but the screen lit up twice with the same name. Nadia. That small red heart stung more than I expected. It was so deliberately placed, so unmistakably intimate. My stomach tightened. I didn't open the messages. I couldn't. But something shifted in me that night. I smiled when he emerged, hair damp, humming like nothing had changed. I kissed him goodnight, but my mind was elsewhere, looping through every unanswered call, every late-night excuse, every unfinished sentence he'd brushed aside. The next morning, I tried to ignore it. Tried to convince myself that Nadia could be anyone, a cousin, an old friend, a client with an unusual emoji habit. But denial is a cruel thing. It wraps itself around you like a blanket, only to suffocate you when you're most vulnerable. Days passed, and the signs became impossible to ignore. Armin grew more distant, his phone never leaving his side. He started locking it, something he'd never done before. When I asked what was wrong, he'd say he was just tired, that work was a mess. And yet, he never stopped showing up, still brought coffee, still held my hand in public, still kissed me like he meant it. But love, I realized, can sometimes be used to cover lies. One night, I followed a hunch. I pretended to fall asleep. Beside him, heart pounding, breath shallow. I felt him slowly shift away, gently, so as not to wake me. His phone lit up in his hands. I opened my eyes just a sliver. He was smiling at the screen, typing, deleting, typing again. I didn't say anything. I just turned over and whispered, "You're not as quiet as you think." He froze. The air between us snapped like a wire, under tension. He sighed, then placed the phone on the table and sat up. I didn't mean for this to happen. That was it. No denial, no excuses, just a quiet confession that shattered everything. "Nadia?" I asked, voice barely mine. He nodded. It was over. Then it wasn't. I thought I could keep both worlds apart, but I never wanted to hurt you. But he had. And the worst part was, I still wanted to forgive him. That night, I didn't cry. I packed a small bag, took my charger, back, and left. He didn't try to stop me. As I walked into the cold night, the streets blurred by quiet city lights, I realized something. Love doesn't always leave when betrayal arrives. Sometimes it lingers, confused, unwilling to accept the truth it already knows. And that truth was now all I had. The days after I left Armin blurred into each other. Quiet mornings with no texts, long walks where I tried to remember who I was before he filled every corner of my life. His absence wasn't loud. It was a slow, dull ache that clung to everything. I kept expecting his name to light up my phone. It never did. For a while, I doubted everything. Not just him, but myself. How did I miss the signs? How could I have mistaken borrowed affection for real love? Each memory now felt like a trick, a carefully staged play I had willingly walked into. But even in pain, time does its work. I deleted his pictures one by one. Not in rage, but with reverence. Each image was a moment I once loved, even if it no longer held the truth. I returned his sweater, erased his contact, and stopped checking his social media. Healing, I learned, isn't a straight path. It's a loop of remembering, hurting, and choosing not to go back. One evening, weeks later, I ran into a mutual friend at a cafe. She looked surprised to see me alone. "You know he's still with her, right?" she said, almost apologetically. "But people are talking, it's messy. She found out about you too." The words didn't sting the way I thought they would. I just nodded. It wasn't my problem anymore. He'd made his choice, and I had walked away before it buried me. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea and let the cool wind wrap around me. I thought of the first time I met Armand under the bookstore awning, how innocent it all felt, how full of hope. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just tired. But beneath that weariness was a flicker of something else. Clarity. He had taught me things he never meant to. About trust. About listening to the quiet instincts we often ignore. And most importantly, about the kind of love I deserved. The kind that didn't require me to compete with shadows or beg for truth. I felt like doing it again. Falling, trusting, giving. Not with him, but someday. With someone who showed up fully. Who didn't ask me to wade in. Silence while they lived a double life. Armin reached out once after that. A short message. I miss us. I didn't reply. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't forgiving someone who broke you. It's choosing not to let them do it twice. And so, I chose myself. The story didn't end with a grand betrayal or dramatic goodbye. It ended in quiet strength, in the reclaiming of my voice, my space, my worth. And that, I've learned, is its own kind of love story. The turning point wasn't loud. It came quietly, like most truths that ruin everything. One morning, I found Rayon's phone buzzing on the nightstand. He was in the shower, humming a tune I once loved but now found hollow. The screen lit up with a message that read, "Last night was perfect. Miss you already." The sender's name was saved as J. My fingers hesitated, hovering over the phone. I told myself not to look, that nothing good ever came from invading privacy. But this wasn't curiosity, it was instinct clawing its way to the surface. I tapped the message thread. There were months of conversations, flirty texts, secret meetups, promises made to someone else using the same words he once said to me. Photos, too. Dinner dates I never knew about. Smiles he hadn't shown me in ages. My hands trembled. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the realization that I had been living in a carefully curated lie. When he stepped out of the shower, towel wrapped around his waist, I was sitting at the edge of the bed, phone in hand. His eyes narrowed as he read my face. "You went through my phone?" he asked, calm, too calm. "You lied to me," I whispered. "For how long?" He didn't answer. Instead, he sat across from me, expression unreadable. "You're too emotional. That's always been your problem. You read too much into things." I wanted to scream, to throw something, to cry, but I didn't. I just looked at him, and for the first time, I truly saw him. Not the man I had loved, but the man he had always been. The mask was gone. "You gaslighted me, you isolated me, and now you're blaming me for the mess you made?" Still, no apology. Just a shrug, as if the collapse of our relationship was a minor inconvenience. That night, I packed a small suitcase. Just the essentials, enough to get away, to breathe. He watched me silently from the doorway, offering no resistance, no remorse. I kept waiting for him to stop me, not because I wanted him to, but because it would have made the goodbye easier. He didn't. As I stepped outside, the wind hit my face like a slap. It was cold, bitter, but real. The kind of cold that wakes you up. I walked without knowing where I was going, just that I needed to go somewhere. Anywhere but here. I didn't cry that night. Not a single tear. Instead, I felt something else. Not joy, not freedom, just silence. But it wasn't empty. It was waiting for me to fill it with something other than pain. I had left him, but I hadn't found myself yet. That would take time. And the path to healing, I knew, would begin with one brutal truth. I had to stop hoping the man who broke me would be the one to fix me. The first few days after leaving felt surreal. Every footstep echoed like I was walking through someone else's life. I stayed with Mira, the friend I'd pushed away for too long. She opened her door without hesitation, but her eyes said everything: relief, worry, and unspoken questions. I didn't have the strength to answer. Them, not yet. Mira never asked for details. She simply gave me a quiet room, warm meals, and space to remember who I used to be. In that silence, I began to hear my own voice again, faint at first, like a whisper beneath waves. But it was there. I started journaling, something I hadn't done in years. At first, the pages held only questions. Why did I stay so long? Why did I confuse control for love? Why did I silence myself to protect someone who never protected me? The more I wrote, the clearer things became. Rayan never loved me. He me, needed someone to hold his chaos, to absorb his damage. And I, in my desperate desire to be seen, made myself small enough to fit into his broken spaces. But I'm not broken. I was just misled. One afternoon, I visited the bookstore where we met. It felt strange, nostalgic, but not painful. The aisles seemed narrower than I remembered, the shelves shorter. Isn't it odd how places shrink once you've grown? I ran into the new clerk, a kind older woman who asked if I was looking for anything special. I told her no, just memories. She smiled, not prying, and offered me a book on healing through writing. I bought it without hesitation. At night, I began sleeping without fear. No second-guessing the sound of footsteps in the hall, no pretending I was okay. The nightmares faded slowly, but so did the guilt. I wasn't weak for staying. I was human for hoping. One evening, I found a message from Rayan in my inbox. A long paragraph filled with deflection, half-hearted apologies, and the same excuses, dressed in prettier words. He missed me. He had changed. Could we meet? I didn't reply. Not out of anger, not even out of fear, but because I didn't owe him my healing. He had taken enough of my voice. I wouldn't let him write the ending. Instead, I sent Mira a text that said, "Thank you for waiting for me." She replied instantly, "You never left. You were just quiet." The truth is, betrayal doesn't always come with scars you can see. Sometimes it's the silence, the loss of self, the erasure of joy. But healing isn't loud either. It's slow, gentle, relentless. Now, when I hear the sound of footsteps in the night, I no longer brace myself. I no longer wait for pain. I wait for peace. And this time, I know I deserve it.